Hello, so I wanted to make this relatively brief video going over P2 movement. Some of it's going to be a refresher of what we've already done with some general notes, and then we're going to cover the latter half of our Toshin, which we haven't seen that much of, and then also cover Pargoth. So we're going to start with maybe 2 or 3 clips for each bit. So starting out, here's Dratnos' video, his kill video. First thing that's the most important is that you're baiting beams, right? It's nice to already be in position. It should make things a little bit easier. Alright, so then once the warden is dead and the fragment cast happens, we're going to go through, and then we can go to our spots after that. Should be nice and easy. And then we get these lines, and we'll cover that up in a second. So if we jump through to the next clip, this is going to keep seeing the same basic thing, right? So we have lines. Warden's dead, fragment cast happens, they move through, and then they get into their mythic soak positions. Right? Similarly, here's Ellie Shaman from Liquid doing the same thing, right? They're already in position, they're baiting lines, they're going to get ready to run through. It's okay if there's a diagonal where you're running. Some clips are even worse, where they're actually drawing a tank line over here. It's actually not the end of the world. You can walk through that slow field pretty effectively without too much of a loss, but we will take a little bit more damage, so it's not necessary. It might make things easier. Another thing, so what I saw some mages doing is that they actually start over here, and then if they get picked for, either they get picked for a line and they stay there and then they come over, or, you know, they just make sure that they blink over before the extinction cast. All right, so moving on, now I want to talk about the soaks into push. Right, so here they're doing their mythic soaks. Now they can move. You can actually run into this as it's disappearing, so you have a little bit more time. Lines are positioning. Where these two are, you know, you need to make sure you have a way to get back, so either like a DK or, in this case, a monk transcendence. For other classes that might have worse lines or worse ways to handle, we'll see that in a second. So they let themselves get pushed, and then they get the boss into position. Here's a example with Ellie Shaman. So now they see they can move here. And you actually see, for example, in this case, Impec is drawing a line that's kind of in this direction. It's safer. Shamans, S-priests, which we don't have, holy paladins, holy priests in our case, you know, it's okay for you to take lines around this direction, or in some cases I even saw, you know, some that were over here, mostly because once the push happens, people aren't going to be in this section of the room. So they're getting into position, Goop hovers in, get pushed, you stay on the platform, and then we get into position. Now we move on to talk about you know, our lines in the second Void Warden area and then our gate. So once again, you see actually Dratnos is baiting the line here. As we talked about this, it's not the end of the world if you have your line cross this section, because, well, ultimately we are gating through it. And then once you gate through, you need to make sure you get into your soak positions quickly. And you need, once the extinction cast is started, you're okay to kill Artoshan. So here's a perspective from a holy priest. See that they're like holy priest, for example, shamans. People are taking the easiest path if you don't have a lot of tools to deal with the lines. And then they gate through, and they get in their soaks. And just as a reminder, once we get here, we have this a little bit differently, right? We have our healers here, with tanks are right here. Our melee are here, and our ranged are here. You can see all that in the assignment. But and once they kill our Toshin, they can move forward. Here's an LA Shaman point of view of the same thing. And we can speed run this a little bit. You see lines, once Yips is doing a line right here. They're gating through, and they get in their soaks. A lot of our assignment circles are weird because we have like four more melee than most guilds have. Alright, so now we can talk a bit about Pargoth. So Pargoth, they land here, their orbs throw, this is the big move. It's the exact same as Heroic, this big move, right? And so then we have the start of Pargoth. The key thing here is that they're baiting. What you want to do is you want to stand between the marker, which is around here, and the boss, so that everybody is baiting on this line. Another thing that's worth noting is that they actually place Pargoth on top of the Void Warden. In terms of soaks, we have Merit here, Dodsey here, and Tank here. And whoever soaks, by the way, you need to really watch their health because they're going to be taking significant damage for the rest of the phase. So then they get in their soaks, and the first soak here is the triangle format. Just like we did before, it's melee, healer, ranged. And then, so now we can see a priest point of view. Same thing, right? In this case, they're between Pargoth and X marker. They're baiting orbs. They put them a little bit off the Void Warden. I want us to try to put it directly on the Void Warden like you see in some of the other clips. And then their orbs go out and they soak. It actually is nice and small because of how well they baited it towards X. Then they run through, and it can be kind of rough, but you have plenty of time to get through. And then you get into your soak spots. Here's the Shaman point of view. Just to cement it. Right, they put it directly on the Void Warden. Orb baits, they're getting their soaks, and then they cross. Once the Void Warden is dead and the fragment cast is started. So you see how even the Ellie Shaman got slowed, still fine moving through. Alright, now let's look at the actual... This clip isn't even helpful. Alright, so after the Mythic Soaks, we are then get ready for the wins. You see how early that they crossed? You can walk on the purple once it starts disappearing. So now they've killed the Warden, they made sure it died, they're getting in line for the pushback. This one, you have a lot of time. It's not as rough as the Artosian wins, where you have to deal with lines and then wins. Looking at it from Liquid's Ellie Shaman point of view, right, you have so much time here, it's nice and safe. I think I mentioned earlier, but the big thing to consider though is, if you're using hovers, blinks, anything that would move you forward, make sure that you kind of want to start using it when you're over in this area. You want to be pretty careful because, if you blink like this, you might end up hitting that or end up hitting, an area you don't want to and end up getting a bunch of damage from the Void Warden. Right, so now they're through, and now they're getting ready to bait. The new Void Wardens are spawning. Consequence hasn't moved Pargoth onto the Void Warden. We're going to want to. I think it's much better. Make sure we're focusing this Void Warden too. I mean, we just need to make sure Void Wardens always die. They're doing the baits. They baited the line in between. Once they've done that, they're gating into spots. They have a lot of... This is a really dangerous part of the fight. Spiritling Totem is good here. I'm not sure if that's what we use, to be honest. But we're doing the same basic soaks. And then you want the Wind's cast to start. Once the Wind cast to start, which is Gamma Burst here, then you kill Pargoth. And then you get pushed off the edge, and you're fine. As long as Pargoth is dead, you will not die here because there's no kill floor. In this liquid POV, we see the same thing, right? They're in position, the Void Warden's on top of the boss. They baited their orbs and caught them, and then they're gating through, they're getting into soak positions. This is a dangerous time. Look how low they are. They're waiting to kill it till Gamma Burst starts, right? Casting pushback, and then they can kill it. And then they worry about healing. You just don't want to die down here because you lose a lot. Alright, and then you're into P3. I'll make another video about P3 and post some resources about that, but first I want to just really focus on getting through P2. P3 will not get much of the fight, so I'll probably post some stuff about the first couple of steps, but that's it.